Hey, Georgia. Thanks so much for joining me today. Really keen to find out more about your book, Machine Learning Security with Azure. But before we begin, it'd be great if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, what you currently do at Microsoft, and a bit more around your background.
Yeah, hi Oliver. Thanks for having me here. I'm really excited to kind of share my insight and everything on this. So, my journey has been unpredictable throughout the years. So, my
Okay.
background started as a software developer.
Okay.
But throughout the years, I loved presenting. I loved doing a lot of things. So, naturally, within my work, I would do a lot of trainings within it. I love technology, so I would go in conferences. I also had like a blog. I would write a little bit of how-to tutorials. That was very, very fun. So fun that I became a Microsoft AI MVP, which is a role that essentially you are recognized for your contributions to the community. So if you're
Okay.
presenting and you're doing all of those things,
So to
but the
clarify, technology-wise, so you're machine learning AI. So what's your background in terms of the software that you grew up learning?
Um, I started as a software developer, but I have a kind of a diverse background. I've
Right.
worked on developing software in many categories, from mobile, web, even SharePoint, and a few other things. And then I kind of grew on that and went on to the cloud.
Okay.
Then I learned a little bit about, infrastructure administration, all of those nice IT things.
So you can
But
do it
I've
all.
always loved,
You
yeah,
got
I've
everything
always
covered.
loved AI. So everything I
Okay.
did, I tried to kind of go into it. Now with the cloud, it's very easy. You get a lot of resources. You don't have to set up a lot of things, locally.
Hmm.
So it's very easy for a developer to kind of integrate this. Besides that, I've worked a lot in architecting solutions on
Okay.
this. I've dabbled a little bit in management. So if someone told me like, 5 years ago, like, what's your 5-year plan? Personally, that wouldn't be my job description.
Okay.
But then again, that didn't work. That didn't exist like a few years ago. So I
Hmm.
was doing all of those things. And since I'm teaching anyway, I thought, why not get certified? So I worked towards being a Microsoft certified trainer. You can do that. You have to be teaching for a few years. There's a whole process. And
Okay.
after this, I saw a friend, like those announcements on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
etc. And he was like, "Oh, I got a new job, blah blah blah." And I was like, "What is this? This sounds so cool." He goes on the role is about, and I'm like, "Wow, didn't even know that it was existed." Like, cool, good job, like very excited. So
Yeah.
a few months later, he goes, "We're recruiting," and that was that. Loved the opportunity, went for it, and personally, it's been very rewarding. I'm in a very
Okay.
talented team. So, and I do what I like. I teach. I still, deliver knowledge in a sense. But because my field is like technical training,
Yeah.
I also like to get the pulse of the market. What the customers are doing,
Okay.
helping them with their solutions and everything. So it's been a real treat getting this role and working.
Nice. So in this role, so who do you describe your customers or users as? So who are the people receiving the training from you?
Can be anything from beginners trying
Yeah.
to work with a cloud,
Okay.
or with AI, from experienced people that come in and want to get a certification, or really need to find how to work with technology they have. So I
Good.
get a lot of different levels of learners.
Okay. So like a really broad range, and I guess that's different to I guess the customers and users you would have been architecting solutions for previously.
Yes and no. Although
Okay.
technically I'm not consulting. If someone asks me, we can definitely we discuss through the class. There's a lot of leeway there. It's a lot of creativity because someone might come in and say, "I'm doing this," and we can definitely discuss. I'm also teaching the architect course, so there's we only do this. We design solutions for fun. So
Yeah. That's pretty cool. And so you've been away and you've done what I consider one of the hardest things to do, which is to write a book. And you've given birth to this amazing new title, Machine Learning Security with Azure. I was wondering if you could give us a bit of background in terms of what your motivation was behind creating that title. What problems in the community were you trying to solve? What's the story behind, writing that?
so what happened is, like, since I went through university, I loved AI,
Yep.
but I haven't applied it early in my career. I only worked towards it later.
Mm,
So it was difficult getting into that field sometimes. So when you start talk about AI, you don't realize there's a lot of data into it. There's a lot of knowledge, math going into it.
yeah.
So you need to really have a base to work from.
Yeah.
So, and when you get into the field, or if you're straight out of university, working with AI, sometimes you lose kind of the scope of what else is out there.
Right.
And a lot of my courses that I teach, a lot of my learners were like, when it comes to AI, especially in the recent years, they're like, yeah, but I don't trust it.
Mm,
Or how can I make sure no one else exploits this somehow? And I was like, there is a need to make, AI solutions that are challenging enough and make them secure.
mm,
And most what I realized throughout teaching is that most of the principles that we talk about securing AI is really cybersecurity best practices anyway.
okay.
So this book, besides the basics, does not go into a specific, like, this is how you're securing your models and that's it.
Yeah.
I went kind of one level up and said, hey, model security, that's good. That's the developers, let's say, responsibility. But then we have the infrastructure that's hosting this.
Yeah.
We have user accounts that are signing in. That's also something that we need to secure. So I thought, hey, there's a broader scope with this
Mm,
because AI, in some aspect, is like any other technology.
yeah.
So I wanted to give the people that work with AI exclusively and kind of don't have that kind of broad scope the opportunity to think about, oh, well, we can do this as well.
Yeah.
So this was kind of the inspiration for the book.
Okay. How did, I guess, the content and when you were thinking about the outline of the book, how did that dovetail with the existing kind of documentation and information available online that was provided by Microsoft already around Azure? Were you plugging gaps that existed there? What talk to me about that?
So, of course, you can find a lot of resources
Mm,
on this. My intention is that the book serves as food for thought.
okay.
So, although I focused on AI specifically and Azure machine learning specifically, in the book, I don't talk about one methodology and one way of doing things.
Yeah.
I talk about different frameworks. A lot of the times when we work with these technologies, we don't use like an AI and that's it. We
Mm,
integrate them into our whole solutions, the whole organizations things. So it's like a part of a bigger puzzle, a part of a bigger puzzle.
yeah.
My book is kind of food for thought and
Mm,
gives you a little bit of insight what that puzzle is.
okay.
And when integrating this, how you can make it more secure
Yeah.
and leverage existing technologies that you might already be using to do the same thing for your AI, your Azure machine learning
Okay.
assets.
And presumably the kind of context that you're helping to create with the title doesn't really exist online currently with the existing content and documentation. It's talking about very discrete use cases, very discrete applications and functions within Azure.
Yes, and the thing is, you might be able to find it, but it's very chaotic because if you go into cybersecurity best practices, there's so many. So in the book, I
Mm,
talk about different frameworks. I'm not
yeah.
talking about just one, because a lot of the solutions that we come up to secure um, are very scenario specific. So you have to look into your organization and what you're using, and then go on and build a plan.
Yeah.
And in this case, you need to have all the tools you need, right? So I'm
Yeah.
talking a little bit about what the tools we have, where each tool can be applied to, and give you a few ideas in the directions you can go to. So I'm not giving all the answers,
Yeah.
but I'm
Yeah.
pointing to the right directions, right?
And you're
Something
helping
like
people
that.
to work out how to answer the problems because it sounds like
Yeah,
the users you have in mind are people that are thinking about, well, I don't even know how to think about like securing machine learning kind of applications that I'm building. And you're giving them routes into this is how you could go about solving these different problems. But you're not
exactly.
prescribing, it sounds like.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Well, what kind of other outcomes did you anticipate for the kind of the key readers of your book? What did good look like following publishing this?
As I said, the main purpose is food for thought,
Hmm.
knowing what's out there. And because both of those technologies, AI and cybersecurity, move at a very rapid pace,
Yeah.
it only takes one slip, one vulnerability to be missed. And then you have a problem in your hands. So I want to make sure that, we don't say, the data scientists and the AI engineers do not stay in their little box, and always have in mind that, there's a lot of things that I can think about when I'm building my solution, right?
Yeah. Okay. Is that a tendency that you see within the kind of community that, maybe it could be AI, it could be ML engineers tend to be very focused on, well, this is my vertical, I'm going to stay within this, but cybersecurity is not part of my deal. This is for somebody else to deal with and worry about.
Yeah, most of the time. And in bigger organizations, they have their separate teams.
Mm,
But what happens with Azure Machine Learning, the product itself says, hey, this is the same product that both the security people can use to secure it. And then the data scientists will go in and do their job, and the AI engineers will go and do their job. So it's kind of segregated into these different to dos within the same environment.
mm,
And you need to think about that although you're working on one part of the same platform, there's another part in that same platform that applies to someone else.
yeah.
So what can we do to make their job easier, to
Yeah.
collaborate?
Yeah. No, that's so important. When you were working through the book development process, what were some of the biggest challenges that you encountered along the way?
Oh, a lot.
You
So
can
I'm
break
going to
them down.
focus. Yeah, I'm going to focus on two parts. The first
Yeah.
is the content itself,
Okay.
and the second is the time.
Yeah.
I thought this was going to be easy because I've been writing how-tos all my life, but
Yeah.
writing a tutorial about a very specific thing is very different than writing a whole book.
Mm,
And the content itself is changing rapidly. So I started roughly on April or May, and the book was published on December.
yeah.
So throughout that time, I was writing something, and then 2 months ago, something was announced that would be next version,
Yeah.
or something that was maybe needed improvement already improved. So there was a little bit back and forth there. That's the
Yeah.
first challenge, trying to make sure that when this hits the shelves is as current as possible, right? You
Yeah.
don't want to write about something that's going to change in 2 months. The second is a little bit through time management,
Yeah.
because the content itself is challenging.
Yeah.
Of course, there were some topics that needed some research or validation or testing beforehand, so this would take time. And there were other chapters where I had so much knowledge, I was putting it in and putting it in, and then you're like, they don't need that much information.
Mm,
So a little bit of a balancing act between getting the right information for the book throughout this period of time while maintaining, the absolute latest. That's
yeah.
what I
And
would
that's a
say was the
nightmare, especially
biggest
got product
challenge.
teams renaming products on the fly.
Oh yes.
Oh, yes. I've been there.
Um, yeah, that was actually there's in the first chapter of my book. I've renamed everything with a new name, but then put a note. Hey, if there's a screenshot out there that
Yeah.
has the old name, sorry.
Yeah, 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 no. It kind of
Yeah,
is what it is. The world of tech publishing is riddled with these kinds of challenges when it's so fast
exactly.
paced, so quickly moving. It's impossible. And to be fair to you, I think you wrote the book in a pretty decent amount of time. So you can think how many more challenges arise if you take longer than a year to get the book completed and written. Reflecting on kind of your experience, what are some of the most valuable lessons that you'd say you've learned throughout the process?
Um, So the most valuable lesson I learn every time I try something like that, whether it's like one article or a whole book,
Mm.
is that you never know how much of an expert you are on a subject until you try to explain it to someone else, right?
So where do you
Um,
sit on that spectrum now?
yes, exactly. And putting it to paper even harder, because then you
Mm,
read through it and you're like, okay, I understand it because I have the background too, but
yeah,
will everybody feel the
yeah.
same? So that's one of the biggest lessons, and it's something I also get from my deliveries and my classes, daily.
Okay. So is that in so much as it's a humbling experience in that it helps
Exactly.
you recognize how much
Exactly.
you actually know versus, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you'd say you've learned professionally in terms of lessons throughout that process?
Um, well, it takes a lot of discipline to go through something like that. When
Sure.
you start a new project, it's very passionate,
Mm,
and you're like, I'm gonna do it. But as soon as you hit a kind of a point that after that initial stage, it takes a lot of energy and discipline. So, if I were to give an advice to someone starting out right now, writing a book, I would say find a way to make it part of your routine. So if you have a little bit of downtime, maybe think
Yeah.
about what you're going to write, make a plan. When you're feeling mentally and you're refreshed, write something, even if it's just one paragraph,
Okay.
because you can't put kind of a limit. Maybe you say, "Oh, I'll write all weekend," and then you're tired or something else happens and
Yeah.
you're distracted. So making it a part of your routine takes a little bit of discipline, and I think that's very, very important. Another thing is that your planning, I think, is the most important part, the
Yeah.
first part when you're thinking about what
Amen.
to write. Because the better you plan, the less you're going to adjust later. There
Yeah.
are going to be adjustment because while you write, you're saying, oh, maybe that doesn't go here, I'll switch. But if it didn't make sense at the beginning, or if while you're writing the plan, there were some gray areas, they are more challenging and will take more time to fix later.
Yeah. How did you find the development of the outline and that process in terms of planning the book and what it was going to look like?
I'll say it took a lot of time planning this. I talked with Packt; they already had something in mind.
Mm.
I didn't go with it 100%. I wanted to
Yeah.
make sure that whatever I go ahead flows.
Yeah.
So we did think about putting a lot of things in the beginning on it, but at the end there were some things that were removed. I didn't find the value of just putting another technology in it
Yeah.
if it
Yeah.
didn't gonna provide value to the reader.
Yeah.
So I think the planning phase was really, really well, and it helped me kind of keep that kind of timeline short
Yeah.
before the delivery.
Okay. Well, huge congratulations to you in terms of getting to the end of the writing process, publishing your title. What would you say is next for for you professionally in regards to what you do in terms of writing? Will you be keen to write another book at any point soon?
To be honest, I'm taking the time to relax and enjoy a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah.
It has been a very rewarding experience,
Yeah,
but a tiring one. As when you're trying to juggle, a full-time job and
sure.
you do this on the weekends, you need that kind of downtime. To be honest, when I finished like that week, I was like, oh, I need time off. Now that it's
Yeah.
been a couple of months, I'm like, oh, I would do it again. Definitely, right? It has been very rewarding, very exciting, and the whole kind of journey was an adventure. So,
Okay.
yeah.
You've already spoken about some of those kind of valuable lessons. Outside of those, what are the kind of the other things that you found rewarding in terms of having published a title? Did you go into with expectations of what you'd be able to do or who you'd be able to share the title with that were met? Talk to me a little bit about the post-publication process.
What do you mean? How it felt,
Yeah, how did it
or
feel? So you have a book, you're now a published author. What was that experience like for you?
to be honest, after that amount of time working on it and working on it, the first kind of feeling was. I don't want to say anticlimactic, but like you can't believe it yet, like it hasn't
Yeah,
sunk in.
yeah.
So like now a few months later, I'm like, wow, that was cool,
Okay.
right? So let's get behind it. But the first kind of month, I was like, still wouldn't believe it.
Okay. And what was
Very
the point
overwhelming
where it
experience.
went from unreal to real?
When you get your copy, like the hard
Okay.
copy,
Yeah.
right?
And you're like, it's my book.
Yeah, I can hold it. It's tangible. Like it's not
Yeah.
an ebook somewhere. It's not digital anymore. So yeah, that feeling was amazing.
Okay, great. Moving aside from kind of the world of publishing, I'd love to understand, based on all of your research and all of your experience, what kind of emerging trends do you see in the world of kind of machine learning and security? What are the things you think developers should be aware of moving forward?
Um, To be honest, I don't like following trends in that sense.
Okay.
So if
Yeah.
someone yeah, maybe a controversial opinion,
It's
but
not
throughout my
controversial, no.
experience, over the years, whenever someone says, "Hey, what's the next best thing?" I'm like, I don't know. Find something that you love, stick with it. If it's relevant, if it's not, I would say be adaptable. Make sure you can learn fast and move to the new thing. Throughout my career, I've worked in software almost a decade
Yeah.
and more. So throughout my career, I've followed a lot of trends. some of those technologies don't even exist anymore. It's not like they've evolved or they changed. They
Yeah, they're
just
gone.
simply became obsolete. They're gone. So something that got me through a lot of all this thing is that, hey, be informed what's going on out there.
Yeah.
Pick something that you love, because if you love something and you're passionate about it, it doesn't feel like a chore. Whereas that trend hopping might leave you with a very diverse experience, but you'll never get very good at something if you don't devote a little bit of time.
Yeah.
So if it's something that you like, for example, although my background is, as I said, software development, I've been chasing AI forever,
Yeah.
just because I love it. So I've worked with different AI technologies. Of course, if I were to pick one right now, I think the hot topic would be generative AI.
Yeah.
Okay. But the rate of change right now in AI and in cybersecurity, I would say it's very difficult to, pinpoint something that's gonna be successful forever. So be informed, pick something that you love, stick with it, and be ready to move on to the next thing whenever that comes in. That would be.
What are your reflections and thoughts about generative AI at the moment? How are you thinking about it in regards to where you want to be in the next kind of 5, 10 years?
Whew. So my I love generative AI.
Yeah.
I feel it has tremendous potential. I am a little worried on the rate of adoption,
Okay. Yeah.
because no technology is bad, of course. But I haven't seen such big changes in such a limited amount of time. I don't know, since I've worked in AI.
Mm,
And the thing is, when that happens, and everybody's chasing a little bit to get this adopted, we might overlook a little bit of the, I don't want to say dangers, but some considerations when it comes
yeah.
to safety, to how the models themselves perform. And frankly, because this has left the tech sphere,
Yeah.
and it's like adopted by the simplest,
Yeah.
the basic business user that works from home, works from an office, in industries that didn't care about chasing technology
Sure.
previously. We need to educate everyone real fast on how they can leverage this securely, safely for them,
Yeah.
and
I guess how not to use it as well. That's
or
a big
how
part of
not
that.
to use
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
or be aware of what's happening. So there, I see a lot of deep fakes, for example, for fun.
Sure.
Yeah, we need to know what deep fakes are. Everybody needs to know. Everybody needs to keep an open mind when they see like a clip in social media that's
Mm.
of their favorite actor doing something that's not really like them, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
There's a danger of misinformation. There's a lot of things that can happen if we don't validate what we get out of that AI, for example, generative AI. We need to kind of, adopt responsibly, if I would put it
Yes.
in a sentence.
And my hope would be that large governments around the world would be thinking about these problems, especially like all the implications around AI ethics.
Yeah.
I think part of the challenge of it, in terms of my reflections on it, is nobody's taking an authority or a lead in driving that conversation. It still feels like it's unowned and unmoderated.
Yeah, that's my hope too.
Yeah,
But I don't know. History has taught us that governments do not move as fast as
that's true.
technology.
That's very true.
So we're still fighting over regulations for data privacy, right?
Yeah.
So how can we expect to get like a proper AI framework so soon? I believe that we can do it, but time will tell, I guess.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Georgia, for your time, for all of your insight and wisdom, especially your reflections on the book writing process. It's been wonderful talking to you, and I kind of wish you all the best for the future.
Thank you for having me. It's been a really nice experience. Thank you very much, as well.